Well, hello and welcome to our front yard garden here in the South Carolina upstate. We're in Greer, South Carolina, near Greenville, and we're roughly halfway between Charlotte and Atlanta. And this is episode 29 for the year 2025. Today is, I got to think about it, September 19th. It's a beautiful Friday. It's pretty much a carbon copy of last week. Crystal blue skies. And so we're going to get started. The temperature's right around 68, 69 degrees. It's going to get up into the 80s today. And so let's get started. We'll look at our zinnias first. They just keep getting taller and taller right now. Some of them are a good 5 feet. In fact, this one right here is as tall as I am. So that's 5'9". Others are between 4 and 5 feet. And these are all grown from seeds. We put them in just coffee cups on the back porch back in the spring, and they've just done wonderfully. They're very low maintenance, and they are giving us all kinds of color, as you can see. Starting to look a little ragged, though. They always do this time of year. The lower leaves start to die off, and I could certainly come through and deadhead these. They would probably look a little fresher, and I might do that this weekend. I've been putting more time into the yard and trying to make it look nice in the past month, and you'll see some of that between this video and the backyard video that I do next. But the only other thing in this bed are a few little variations of morning glories, very subtle, but they give us these little tiny orange flowers, which are kind of pretty, but everything else I've kind of pulled out either because it was dead or it was just kind of taking over the garden. So that's it for that bed. We're going to come on up here out of the sun where it might be a little easier to see. We've got our little triangle bed here. I did some deadheading on this a few weeks ago, and it seems to be paying off because we're getting some nice red roses. The other thing that's helping this is the fact that the weather has cooled down. None of these plants like the super hot weather that we were getting back in July when it was in the 90s every day. In fact, we were close to 100 a few times, and the roses don't care for that. But since I cut this back, we're getting quite a few new roses, so I'm hoping that'll continue as the fall progresses, maybe at least for a few more weeks into October. And here we have more zinnias, just like the others, except they're a little bit shorter. More of the pinks and a little bit of red over in here. Again, these could really use a good deadheading. I think they'd look a lot fresher, but still getting a lot of color here. And then behind all of that, of course, are the black-eyed Susans. Lots and lots of these that have just kind of come up on their own. They spread from our backyard up here, and they've been a real blessing for the front garden because at this time of year we don't have a lot else besides the zinnias to give us color. The only exception are these Russian sage here, which is another plant that did not do well in the heat of summer, but they're doing really well right now, and probably will for a few more weeks, probably around October 1st to mid-October, depending on the weather. I think that's when a lot of these plants will start to shut down for the year. Last year we had our first frost on December 1st, but the year before that it was in mid to late October. So last year we got about 6 extra weeks of growing. And even with that, even though it hadn't gotten really cold, plants were shutting down anyway, just because the days are shorter and they respond to the amount of light. So it's not just a temperature thing. Now here in the background, not much going on this climbing rose today. Last week we had quite a few red roses. Right now, not much, but next week we may be getting some more. And then on this one we had a bright red rose that was in bloom last week. It's still kind of hanging on. It's fading a little bit, but these don't do typically a whole lot this time of year. I did cut them back. They had a lot of stalks that were just sort of hanging out and not looking all that good. But I don't know if we're going to get any more leaves or flowers this year, but next spring we probably will. And then, in case you're wondering, if you didn't see our spring videos, these leaves here are clematis, and these will give us some beautiful white flowers come spring. So we'll be looking forward to that. More zinnias through here, and then as we get into the shadier part of the front yard, our hydrangeas are still just sort of slowly fading. This is primarily a spring shrub, I guess you would call it, but it does keep these flowers on really the entire year, and eventually they just turn brown. Some of them already have, as you'll see here, and they'll actually stay on until next spring unless I cut them off. Now they are looking a little wilted. We have not had any significant rain here for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and we do have our lawn sprinkler system on every third day, so that it doesn't overdo it and doesn't get doesn't develop fungus in the grass. But in the meantime, on days when it's a little bit drier, and you see that over here too, same thing with these hydrangeas, they could use a little bit of water. Now these viburnum are doing fine. They are, I think their roots are just a little bit deeper, and they are actually looking very, very healthy. I chopped these back a little bit. They have a tendency, you can kind of see one here, they have a tendency to put out these long shoots that will go several feet out, but that doesn't really help their flowering, and I really want them to focus on flowering more than greenery. So they've gotten as big as they need to be. Now I want them to put out lots of flowers. We've got our gardenia here. It put out a handful of flowers a couple of weeks ago, and it's now done for the year. And it looks like getting a lot of yellow leaves, so that's gonna call it quits for the year pretty soon. And then before I forget, I want to just show off our little citrus grove here. Not a whole lot to talk about. We've got the orange tree here, which has produced basically nothing so far in 4 or 5 years that I've had it, and a lemon tree here, which we've gotten a few flowers on but no fruit. This one tends to struggle if it doesn't get enough water, or if it's not just weather changes and things like that. But it is hung in there. It's still alive. And these little ones that I got for a bargain at Home Depot have actually been the most prolific. We've gotten the most flowers off of them. And as you can see down here, got a couple lemons growing. This area is not, upstate of South Carolina is not known for its citrus groves. It's more of a Florida and California kind of thing. But regardless, if you take care of them and you keep them away from the frosts, you never know what you might get. Now over here in this area, this is primarily a spring bed. We've got some more viburnum here, and azaleas, which have given us a few flowers here in the late summer. Not much, but we may get some more before, well, maybe in another month or so. These tend to bloom twice a year, so I'm optimistic we'll get some more flowers in a few weeks. Over here, our butterfly bush is pretty much done for the year. I had chopped this back so that it would put out more flowers, and I'm going to have to do it again next year. Got one little flower left, but that's really about it. Otherwise, this bed is, as I say, just pretty much a spring bed. I did deadhead our big knockout roses here a couple of weeks ago. Not seeing a whole lot of new growth yet, but we are getting a few flowers, 3 or 4 little red flowers that are giving us some nice color out at the street level. And then we will finish up with our big oval bed here. We've got these salvia. The name escaped me last week, and I tend to call them rock candy, but they are primarily a spring bloomer, but we've gotten a nice second round of blooming here in the late summer, and it's a nice, it's not exactly an impact plant, but it's a nice color. It's a really pretty flower. And then over here we've got a climbing rose, which is largely done for the year. It needs a little bit of deadheading, but it does have a beautiful pink rose on it. And then over here are dahlias. I put these up because they were hanging out into the yard. Unfortunately, all the flowers are kind of turned away from the street, so they're kind of hard to see. Not real impressive. We had several that bloomed a couple of weeks ago, and they're just sort of hanging out. And we've got one here that's probably the nicest one, and of course it's kind of hidden. If I bend it around this way, maybe you can see it a little better. Just about everything else in this bed, with the exception of these zinnias, is done. Now these zinnias are interesting. We put these in back in the spring like all the others, but we're pretty much just getting this pink variation. We've got a couple that are either yellow or orange, but the vast majority of them, probably 90% of them, are this pink color. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a little different than what we're seeing elsewhere. Now these are our three knockout roses in this bed. We've got pink, and then red and coral over here. And usually these are pretty much done by this time of year, but we're getting a few stragglers that have just started to come out here in the late summer after I deadheaded them. And this coral one, even though it doesn't look too healthy, it's lost a lot of its leaves to black spot, and yet it's covered with flowers. It's the strangest thing. We don't usually get that this time of year. That's kind of nice. Gives us a little bit of color yet here in the late summer. And this actually will be our last video for the summer. Next week will be fall. I think today's the 19th, so I believe it's 2 days from now. It's the first day of fall. We'll keep doing these videos until really until there's nothing left to see, which will probably, last year it was right around Thanksgiving. Got a little variation of a morning glory that's just kind of come up on its own, wrapping itself around this Asiatic lily. And let's see, not much else. Let's see if there's anything else. Well, we do have this one little wildflower. I've shown this off before. It's a little vine that develops in the late summer, and then it gives us these bright blue flowers, just a couple of them. Some weeks we'll have quite a few out, and other weeks not. But that is kind of a neat little thing that you'll see on certain days. Other than that, you know, lilies, the gladiolus, everything else is done for the year. So that's about it for the front yard for right now. We're gonna go around to the backyard and do our video there in a moment, and we'll keep doing these. Hopefully we'll see you next week, and hope it's sunny wherever you are. And until next time, happy gardening.